Around 10 or 11 years ago, you hadn't even heard of the u3a. How did you begin to connect with this organisation?
Well, it all began sometime in March in 2003, when I was down at our recently opened community centre here in Winthorpe, and two ladies appeared at the door, and I invited them in, and they started talking about something called the University of the Third Age, which, as you say, I'd never heard of. And I thought at first I'd got some religious extremists to deal with, but the ladies were Sandra Hardman and her friend Sally Leaper, and they had come over from Lincoln, and they started explaining what the u3a was all about, and it sounded quite interesting. And they explained that the reason they'd come was to find a venue for two activities to take place in. The first was the regional meetings of the u3as throughout the East Midlands that then existed. They would meet every 3 months for a whole day's meeting, and they wanted a venue somewhere near the centre of the East Midlands for that, and Newark is the centre of the East Midlands. The other thing they wanted was a venue for a meeting to hold a start-up meeting for a Newark u3a, which at that time didn't exist. And in fact, some people were going from Newark to Lincoln to the u3a there. So it came to pass that the venue was chosen for both those events. Jean ended up catering for about 40 chairmen, etc., of the u3as throughout the East Midlands. And we got the start-up meeting set up.
Well, of course, when I first heard about it, the Newark u3a hadn't been formed, because I heard about u3a from a friend who lived in Melton Mowbray, and she sent me all the details of what her group did, and that was in November 2002. Then, in the spring of 2003, I went into the co-op and saw a notice on their board asking for people to go to a preliminary meeting up at Winthorpe.
So, around 10 or 11 years ago, you hadn't even heard of the u3a.
Oh, actually.
Keep going.
Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, I belong to it down in Hampshire, Fleet in Hampshire.
So when was that?
If I could fill you in on that one, we moved
Yeah.
into Newark at the year 2000, and we moved from a place called Fleet in Hampshire, and Fleet had an established u3a with about
1,000 members
well,
then.
there's about 700 I think, but it's
Yeah.
now up to about 1,500, so that's how big the area is. Audrey was a member and I wasn't, because I was busy playing bowls, as I am now, and I also was part of the local art society down there, so I didn't have much time really. So Audrey was the only member of the u3a in those days.
The venue was also chosen for the start-up meeting of the Newark and District u3a, and a meeting was held on April the 8th, again in the community centre. Sandra Hardman and Sally Leaper were there again, and among other things they persuaded David Blake and Cynthia Howells to be the original co-chairman of the organisation.
There was probably, I don't know how many turned up, 20, 25, I don't know altogether. And the idea was from the two ladies at Lincoln that we should try and form an initial group to set up a committee. And that's what happened. We picked up, I think, about 6 or 7 of us, put our names forward to go on the committee.
And at that meeting, volunteers were asked for to start a steering group. And of course I put my hand up and was quite quickly elevated to first treasurer, which was quite easy because we hadn't got any money. In fact, the money that was so tight that we couldn't afford to pay speakers on a regular basis, and so it depended upon our own members and people that would speak for free. Some were excellent, others tried, and they were also trying, so to speak.
And then at the first committee, which was held in somebody's house, I can't quite remember. Oh, it was Audrey Thorpe's house, that's right. We agreed then that I would be a joint chairman, along with
Cynthia
Howell from
Southwell.
But the main purpose of the meeting was for those of us present, about, I don't know, 25, 30 maybe, to say what groups we would like to become established in the Newark U3a.
Yes, the first groups that we had, I tried to start a circle group, circle dancing, but there were only 6 members, and unfortunately I only knew one dance that could be done by 6 people, so that didn't last long.
Jean and I had said that we were interested in bird watching and archaeology, having seen a few Time Team programmes. Bird watching at the time got nowhere. It had to wait for Reg Robinson to appear for that to work. But the archaeology got started. At that meeting I met Philip Talon for the first time, and we agreed to get the group going together. He would do the archaeology because he was an archaeologist, and I would do the organising. And that's how it all began. And in fact, we had our first meeting here in this room.
There was a food appreciation group which Kate West ran at Farndon, and people took a dish that they'd prepared at lunchtime along to that meeting. They talked about it and then ate what they'd taken. I started a Scrabble group just along the road in the Methodist church rooms there. It was Scrabble one end, and at the other end Tom Chamberlain did an art group. Eventually that moved on, and as you know, Brenda Williams now runs it. There was a theatre group which we went to Ayrham Theatre and to the Palace, as well as the Nottingham theatres, and when we went to the Nottingham theatres we travelled on the service bus. Film studies was another group. We didn't do that to a regular pattern. We waited until we saw something coming up that we fancied doing. That was in the days before Reel opened in Newark. And I well remember on one occasion we went to Lincoln to see Memoirs of a Geisha. Unfortunately, the heating had broken down in the cinema, and when we came out we were absolutely frozen. So we came back to Newark and went to the Thai restaurant at Bowman Cross to get a curry to warm us up.
So when did you start up the art group?
That's a good question. We started probably maybe 2 years after we originally started the U3a going. The first 2 meetings we had were down at Horton Village Hall, and then for some reason they stopped us going there because the building wasn't safe, or I think somebody burnt it down eventually, I can't remember now. It wasn't us anyway. But we then moved to Coddington Scouts Hall, which again was not an ideal situation because the car parking was always a problem down there. So we only had approximately, at the most, 8 people turn up for our art group. So eventually we decided to call it a day and stop using it, and we closed down for a few years after that until the Bulls Club started to hire out their building, and that's when we opened up again as the art group.
Working.
In August 2003 we had our first outing, which was to Creswell Crags. And we explained that we were an archaeology group, and they put on the best expert they got to talk to us. And by that time, Maggie Johnson and Pat Wood had both joined the group. And I'll never forget being bent double in Creswell Craig's grave while Maggie asked question after question after question. But nevertheless, it was a very enjoyable trip. We were very glad to have them both in the group. And so things went on, various outings. We started with extended holidays. The first one was to the Roman Wall. Unfortunately, after a few years, Philip left us to go north permanently. But Jean and I carried on after that. And recently we've been supported by a small subcommittee.
Tell us a bit about those.
Yes, when Kate West stopped doing it, I think she was going to do some studying, wasn't she? And I took it over for some, well, probably about 3-4 years, maybe not be longer than that. But yeah, they used to work quite well, but the problem was we had to rely quite a lot on getting outsiders to fill the coaches and things. And we decided at the end of the day that that wasn't a good idea, and I think the u3a headquarters are against doing that anyway because of the insurance problems that could arise, so that was really why I stopped doing it. We did lose money on a few of them, but at the end of the day we broke even, which was the main idea, to break even, which is what we did.
So you joined this group at Winthorpe. How did that evolve into moving into Newark?
Because there was a lot of people from Newark who couldn't get to Winthorpe very easily. So I'd have to rely on other people taking them because there wasn't regular buses, was there?
Well, I think that also the ladies didn't like driving over that roundabout.
Didn't like yeah, the big roundabout.
They don't like the big roundabout by the Roman way, so they're very averse to going all the way to Winthorpe.
I blame them.
So it moved to Newark.
So we moved to the Bridge Centre after that, didn't we? Which was, we were at the Bridge Centre for quite a long time, I think.
Ian, you were also a pioneer member. I wonder how you fitted in the u3a around all your other commitments.
In the early days, the monthly meetings were held on a Tuesday, and unfortunately I had a long-standing commitment on Tuesdays with my Old People's Club in Winthorpe. So it was only when the monthly meetings changed to a Thursday that I was able to go to the monthly meetings. However, I was always at the archaeology meetings, which have always been on a Thursday, haven't they?
Yes.
And I've enjoyed every one of them.
I think the strength of the u3a is the friendships that you make. We had a lot of fun laying the foundations.
It did have quite a big effect. We've been here in Winthorpe for over 40 years, but for the first 30 of those, nearly all our activities were involved here in the village, and we've both been very busy doing that. But when the u3a came along 10 years ago and ended up meeting in Newark, and most of the members were from Newark, we obviously got to know a lot more people than we had previously in Newark and the surrounding villages. And in fact, we've thoroughly enjoyed meeting them, and we like to think we've made some very good friends. So for us, it's been almost entirely a very enjoyable experience.
And you, Jean?
And it's broadened our horizons as far as archaeology, which we didn't know a great deal about before we started, and we've seen a lot of places that we wouldn't have seen otherwise.
But from my point of view, the thing that I shall remember most are the long-lasting friendships that I've made.
Can we say that we're sorry we're not able to get to the 10th year party? It just so happens we're taking the village on holiday and some of the u3a members as well. So we're sorry we can't be there, but we do wish you a very enjoyable party, a very happy 10-year anniversary, and here's to the next 10 years.
Cheers.
Cheers.